Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm S. Maxine Fisher, an author, case manager, and queer parent. I am excited to have you along for the journey. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the second market I did, and this was a Pride event. It was actually marketed to us as a Pride market and shared with the queer community here up in a more urban area of Delaware, and I was really excited to go. So I'm going to share with you my insights, but at some point I got cut off, so I'm going to jump back in and we're going to talk all about how that market went. Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. I want to talk about our recent market that we had and how everything went. This was a Pride event that was held locally within my town, and I'm really excited to share the results. This video is going to be a little bit different. If you have been watching my channel, you may notice that I'm not in my usual setup or my usual area. I'm actually just sitting on my couch crocheting. So I'm going to be working on a custom order because I took some commissions while I was at the Pride Festival. So this is just going to be a little crochet and chat. It is Pride Month, and I have been inundated with lots of orders for packers, keepot, and all kinds of plushies. So without further ado, let's get into it. So the Pride Market that I went to was held down in historic Newcastle, which is not too far away from where I live. It was a really good opportunity and had been touted by the organizers as having been a really big success in the past. They did one last year during the holiday season, and people really turned up, and it was just a great festive time. So long story short, we decided to do it twice a year, and this time fell right on June 1st during Pride Month. So obviously I signed up for that, and I also signed up for the one in the fall, you know, just keeping my fingers crossed that it was going to be a really good event. I did do one event previously, and that was a local art market that was put on by a therapy center, and that was kind of downstate. It was in a more rural area, and we didn't have a whole lot of foot traffic, for which I was grateful because I really got the hang of my point of sale, figured out how to just set up and tear down my booth, and took a lot of lessons with me into this market. So first of all, the vendors were allowed to set up starting at 9 a.m. The market started at noon, and that gave us 3 hours to set up. And that is where I encountered the first big hang up of the day. So after getting up at the crack of dawn, driving around and around the green where we were supposed to be meeting, I was really elated to find I was probably the first person there. I kind of overshot that 9 a.m., found myself a parking spot, found myself a vending spot that was right by the outside of the green next to the sidewalk, and I was like, I am really in business because this is just a prime location. And since nobody was there, I kind of staked my claim, put my tent down, and I got all my tables out, and kind of ran into the organizer right as everybody was coming in. And, you know, she greeted me, found out who I was. We chatted a little bit. She kind of had her eye on one of my products. And long story short, my wife and I pitched the tent and even got some help from one of the other vendors who showed me how to pitch my canopy for the first time. So that was really nice. It was a great vibe. And, you know, I got to introduce myself to some other folks as they were coming in, and you know, pitching tents kind of behind us up on the green. So my wife she helped me, you know, set up some of the physical structures and then just keep track of all the things that were blowing over in the wind as usual, or were falling down, and making sure that everything was set up securely and really looking pretty. Having a canopy and multiple tables really helped. And after setting everything up, I realized I have so much variety in my inventory. I really need a third table with maybe just like some leveled steps and stuff where I can display some of my larger plushies without them kind of running into each other. But all in all, it was really a great setup. So I was excited about how I set it up, and it got to be about 11 o'clock, and we were supposed to be all ready by 11:30. And around 11, I turned around and I noticed that most of the vendors that I'd been greeting as they passed by that hadn't set up next to me were actually positioning themselves toward the center of the green. We had like a kind of a trapezoidal space that had little sidewalks running through it. And right at the confluence of those sidewalks, it was kind of like a little star. That was where everybody else had pitched their tents. So I started kind of keeping an eye open, thinking, okay, well, they're going to kind of come around to my side, and we're going to be all spread out over this green. But come 11:30, and I realized my mistake, that nobody else was set up around the outside of the green. Everybody was toward the center. So that got to be a problem as the market was about to open. We were already getting customers, but the customers that I was having come to my booth were not attendees of the Pride Market. They were just local people walking their dogs. So I had a lot of people kind of stop by and cruise and browse and be like, oh, your stuff is really cute, and keep on walking. Unfortunately, some people that I encountered had actually, had some large dogs with them, and the dogs were not as well behaved as one would hope going into a vending space. And obviously these, pet owners had not come in there prepared to shop. So they took their dogs in there, and the one dog actually came up and almost licked a $200 plushie that I had spent weeks making, because I had it positioned kind of lower, below one of the tables. And this dog came up and was like going after her. And I had a panic moment because I thought that this was going to be like a $200 plushie that I had poured blood, sweat, and tears into, and it was just going down the drain. Fortunately, she was able to, kind of move her pet away. But the next person who came in, their pet was not as well behaved, and they came and defecated right on the ground, in front of my booth. So it was looking to not be a very good experience for us. I was really kind of upset at that point. That's when the organizer came over. She actually approached my wife and kind of suggested that I should move my tables inside the green area. And she actually even offered to help, or to send some help. So my wife and I talked about it, and we had tables that were just covered with little small items and little signs that were just propped up on their own stands. So you jog everything and it's going to fall over. I feel like I probably should have been working on that and trying to figure out how to make things a little bit more secure. But the biggest problem was the racks, like the vertical racks of items I had. Some had glass, because I had like a coffee cup and little fish bowls with crocheted fish in them. So I was really nervous at first about moving, but the team actually came over. They helped me, just carefully move the racks to the ground, grab the tables, brought them inside, into the center of the star. And long story short, everybody was awesome, and they just supported us to be able to move this kind of elaborate setup right into the middle of the vending area. So I was glad I made that decision, because we didn't get any more kind of random people strolling by. We actually when I got over there, there was a small crowd that had gathered in and around my booth, and was kind of swarming around the table and trying to buy stuff. So there was a few minutes of confusion. We got the canopy and everything kind of outlined, and we were able to direct the flow of traffic, and I started checking people out. So let me talk a little bit about the festival. We had folks from all over the county who came in just to be able to, find a safe space to network with local businesses, with queer-owned businesses, and resources that help support the queer community. So it was such a great vibe. I know I said that before, but it was like I felt like I was able to just build some relationships and network with other members of the community. And that was amazing. People were friendly, people were really gracious, and I didn't have people coming in, like some crocheters describe, complaining about high prices on some of my larger items. Although I didn't sell a lot of larger items, I did make, some big dragons that people admired, but for the most part, I sold a few large plushies and lots of minis, which is good because I brought three full tubs of just the minis. And within the first few minutes of the market, I had actually was able to make back my booth fee and cover the cost of the materials that I'd invested in creating all this inventory. So all the crocheting that I'd done for the past several months to a year leading up to this market really paid off. I sold one item that I was really happy about selling. That was actually my first draft of a Loch Ness Monster pattern I've been developing. There are some Nessie monsters that are going viral, and this is not them, but this was just something I came up with, which is sort of this lying down plesiosaur with half circle flippers that are. It's meant to be kind of a more market-friendly item where it's easy to construct, not too much sewing. There are some details that are crocheted right into the plushie, and it's this gorgeous little swimming plesiosaur that is fruit themed. So the one I had made was a dragon fruit Loch Ness monster. It had little blush and hand painted safety eyes with the bright color shifting glitter, and she was really a fun one. She was a little weird looking because I don't know if I had gotten the proportions right to the perfection I desired, but she was, something that I had put a lot of work into. And somebody came across and was like, oh my goodness, I am obsessed with Loch Ness monsters. And she was telling me about all the Loch Ness, the Nessie monsters that she had for plushies and keychains and little friends. And she's like, oh, but I've got so many Loch Ness monsters, I really don't need another one. I've got to refrain. So I respected that when if you have too many Nessie monsters. But 5 minutes later, that person came back and was like, I've got to have her. So my Nessie was sold to a good forever home with somebody who's really going to love her. I also sold that giant octopus. I call it my small child-sized octopus. It was about probably almost a wingspan from one tentacle to the next. It was about that long, stretched out. So you could really just kind of wear it on your shoulder as this big, comfortable, cuddly thing to cuddle while you're like lying on the couch or something. And that was made with Parfait XL and Big Twist plush was the rainbow color on the inside. It was a really beautiful piece. Got a lot of folks looking at cleaning me out with the chickens, with the cheeky turtles, the vitamin C turtles. Those were definitely a popular one. So I freehand my own cheeky turtles, which is a mini turtle about that big, and in the back of the body it has a gigantic butt. So it's got this big booty, and it's covered up with a shell that has two little handles, and it fits onto the turtle's little arms, so it's holding its shell on. But if you pull the one shell off, you can, people find it funny that, it's got the little booty and you get some laughs. And I freehand mine in fruit themes. So I had you name it, strawberry, dragon fruit, banana ones with the little, the little brown seeds. I had some cute little peach ones. And I even had a chocolate covered strawberry. And most of those went. I think I sold a dozen cheeky turtles at the show. What else was popular? We had stress ball buddies, where I had the rainbow beads in kind of the squishy beads that extrude and create this kaleidoscope of colors when you squish the stress ball. So I had those whales, little frogs, and my own pattern that I call it Perry Popperfish, that I will be releasing pretty soon, whenever I get around to cleaning it up and testing it. What else do we have? We had some baby dragons, and I was able to actually make one kid. I have a dragon order that he wanted one in, let's see, it was pink, blue, and white. So I'll go ahead and make him that dragon some special eyes, and then we'll be in business. I definitely, for the next fair, I am going to want to bring more of my pride themed items, especially with multiples in some of the more popular flag colors. Because right now I'm making an NB. It's going to be a non-binary B with the black, purple, white, and yellow. Because I think I only had one of those, and that sold early on, and then somebody else wanted one, and we had like multiple requests for like trans flag bees or rainbow bees. Um, so yeah, I'll be bringing more pride bees. I'll bringing more chill pills. I have this one's almost done, a lesbian flag chill pill that I'm working on for somebody that had a special order. And what else? I'll probably pop back on here and run down like the exact numbers of what I sold. So I sold 2 Anchor the Octopus, one the giant one and one smaller one that I made with like Parfait Chunky. I sold 10 Pride Snails, and those were actually a build your own snail interactive that I made with the Snailed It pattern, which is free on Instagram. And it's kind of like the Cheeky Turtle, where it has a snail body that has 3 little sets of arms, and it holds on its shell, and it's got a big stuffed shell, which is easy to stripe. So I made those in pretty much every pride flag. But I actually got a lot of kids wanting them, that they were more interested in just a pretty snail. So I might change that product to, just having some aesthetically pleasing shells and letting people pick their snail body. So 10 Pride Snails. I sold 9 Cheeky Turtles, 10 Stress Ball Buddies. I'm not sure how many frogs or popper fish, but I basically sold my entire inventory of those. I did not sell any of the whales, so I think I might remake that product and give it some different eyes, because I'm not sure I like how they came out looking. I sold 8 bees with pride flag designs. That's including the special orders. I got 2 of those were custom orders that I'm working on now. I sold 3 little dragon snugglers, and those were the Diddy Dex pattern, where you have like a palm-sized dragon snuggler. 9 heart-shaped keychains with different pride flags. 7 chickens. 8 chill pills. 3 vitamin C turtles that are the little sea turtles that are fruit-shaped. So I had like an apple one, a blueberry one, and a dragon fruit one that sold. I sold 6 different mushy boys, mostly the red ones. And 4 fuss-free pet goldfish that are the little fish in the tiny glass fish bowls. 2 Tank the Dragon, and literally that was all I brought. I made those kind of the night before. I made a strawberry one and a blackberry themed one, and those both went. 4 transgender mice. That was all the mice I made. 3 leggy frogs, and 4 figural keychains. So I had like a couple chickens, a little bee. I had like little fidget donuts. So I don't remember which of those was which, but 4 more keychains. One of the bunny snugglers, that is a pattern by Crochet by Jenna, and you should check it out. It's an amazing pattern. I did sell 1 pride hat that somebody actually special ordered to be an extra large one. 1 pride keepa. Somebody bought one of my Star of David keepot. 1 double granny square wallet. 2 baby octopi, 3 emotional support pets, 1 pickle and 2 potatoes. That was all I had left from the last market. 1 pride keychain wallet, and 1 transgender starfish. So they pretty much cleaned me out. I came home with like maybe half a tub left of minis, and some of my larger dragons. I did have them kind of all on the same table, and while they were much admired, none of them sold. And I do think part of that is because the nature of the market I went to today was not a craft show. It was a Pride Festival market. So people didn't seem to come with a huge amount of money to spend or intending to spend large amounts of monies. I feel like at Pride events, people mostly are looking for smaller goodies, souvenirs, and just kind of little desk buddies, as opposed to a larger plushie. And I totally get that, but I'm glad that I have those figures still up for adoption, because I do have a market at a school coming up where hopefully there will be some kids and teens, and I do intend to make more just kind of generic plushies for that. I will bring my dragons, I will bring my fish, and I will definitely be making more of the stress ball buddies and some of the minis that were most popular. So market totals. What do I have? What did I get? At the end of the market, I tallied everything up and I sold $1,980 worth of items. That's combined for the card transactions, cash, and Venmo. I spent $41.29 in point of sale fees. Given what I made today, that really was not bad. One thing I might do differently in my next fair is put that payment sign in a more convenient location so that if people do want to Cash App and Venmo me, that I won't be losing as much in those POS fees. I did get a lot of cash transactions. I had $444 in cash that came in, and I was really happy that I kept all the small bills that I had retained from the last fair, because the last fair I did not make any change, and this time I definitely did a lot more change making. In fact, I might want to get myself a larger cash box where I have the bills all laid out and it's a bit more organized, because that got crazy. And again, my lovely wife stepped up and just said, I'll handle the cash. So anybody who paid in cash, she was able to, make change for them while I was recording everything in my point of sale to make sure that I was correctly keeping track of everything that came in and went out. One takeaway from this market is that I definitely will be developing a more professional way of making custom orders. After talking to some folks in an online group, I came up with some ideas. So literally the night before the Pride Festival, I realized that, wow, I don't have every single Pride flag in some of the items, like the bees that some had sold in the last fair. I was like, what if somebody comes up to me and they want something that I don't have, or they want to have me make an original character like the one child did. So what I did was I treated any custom orders at this fair as purchases. So if somebody ordered a Pride Bee, I would ring them up for a Pride Bee, take that payment and take their contact information, and I said, I will be in touch with you in the next 2 weeks. After walking away from the festival, I was like, if I were on the customer side, I might want a little bit more proof of what I had just paid for. So I did go into my POS and turn on the receipts option, which I had turned off from the last festival. If you saw my video from the last fair, you'll know why, because I literally almost had somebody walk away with a $95 plushie and their card transaction had timed out, and I literally had to go hunt the dad down before they left the premises and get that payment to go through. So I did simplify my point of sale a lot, maybe to a fault this time, but fortunately there were no bad transactions. Everything was processed through. So this is me picking up where the ball got dropped here. So after I filmed this video is where my device ran out of storage once again, and it was so chock full that I was not able to film until I found a new storage device. However, I did have an absolutely phenomenal experience at the Pride Market. It was a lot of work and a learning experience, and I could not be more grateful to the event coordinators and my family for helping everything to come together. One awesome thing that came out of it was just building relationships with community members who have reached out and asked for custom orders, and as well as the event coordinators that I've worked with multiple times. So shortly after this market was over, I got an email from the event coordinator inviting me to yet another Pride event, which was our local family Pride at one of the Delaware museums. At the end of the day, I was once again the last vendor tearing down, and I realized that's just a reality I will need to accept happens, because as a crocheter, you have so much inventory and so many different boxes and baskets and racks and containers and bits and pieces that all have to get packed up and put back in the car in a specific order. It's a lot of work. However, I can say with full confidence that the experience was well worth it. Unlike the last video where I was absolutely dying in the heat in my own living room, I am upstairs now enjoying the lovely breeze from our new air conditioning unit that was just installed. So we finally got central air. I was able to use the money I've collected through the crochet business to replace all our old window units with a central air system. For me, this is really the first big milestone in running a successful business, which is being able to reap the rewards at last. I am still investing heavily in growing my business, and I still have 2 huge boxes of yarn from Premier waiting in the corner over there for me to just tear through it all as I restock for all my fall events. So that's it for today's video. Be sure to check out the links down below if there was something I mentioned that you would like to check out. Smash that like and subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next one. As always, remember to be kind. Be kind to me, to each other, and ultimately to yourself. Have a fabulous day, everyone, and stay creative. Bye!